The rain fell in a gentle drizzle over Logan Square, Chicago, its soft patter a quiet soundtrack to Sarah's thoughts. She sat cross-legged on her living room floor, a worn journal open in her lap, its pages yellowed and creased from years of handling. The apartment was small but warm, with mismatched furniture, a shelf of children's books, and a single lamp casting a golden glow. At 28, Sarah was a picture of quiet resilience. Brown hair tied loosely, green eyes sharp with memory, her teacher's cardigan draped over a chair. The journal, a relic from her childhood, held words she hadn't read in years, each one a shard of a pain she'd tried to bury. July 14, 2007. I'm not going to Mike's wedding. I'm only 10, but I'm not a baby. Why don't they want me there? Sarah's fingers traced the childish scrawl, her breath catching. That summer, 2 decades ago, had marked the first time she'd felt invisible. As the youngest of 5 siblings, she'd grown up in a house that felt more like a revolving door than a home. James, the eldest, was the golden boy, a lawyer with a swagger that commanded attention. Daniel, serious and bookish, was a doctor who spoke little but carried weight. Laura, the only sister, was a chameleon, charming one moment, cutting the next. Ethan, the closest in age, was a musician with a restless energy, always just out of reach. And then there was Sarah, born when her siblings were already teenagers, a latecomer they treated like an afterthought. Her mother, Patricia, ruled the family with a mix of charm and control, her love for her older children, a beacon Sarah could never quite reach. Growing up in Chicago's South Side, Sarah had idolized her siblings. James, with his booming laugh, was her hero. She'd trail him around the house, begging for stories of his high school glory days. Daniel's rare smiles felt like treasures. Laura, with her perfect hair and sharp wit, was the sister Sarah dreamed of emulating. Ethan, only 8 years older, was the one she hoped would bridge the gap, but even he kept her at arm's length, his life too busy for a tag-along kid. Patricia, always distracted by her older children's achievements, would pat Sarah's head and say, "You'll understand when you're older," a phrase that became a refrain. Sarah wanted to belong, to be seen, but the family's rhythm never slowed enough to include her. The memory of James's wedding was a wound that hadn't healed. At 10, Sarah had been old enough to feel the sting of exclusion but too young to fight it. She'd overheard her parents planning, her heart soaring at the thought of James marrying his fiancée, Claire, a kind woman who'd once braided Sarah's hair. The wedding was to be a grand affair at a downtown hotel, with string lights and a dance floor. Sarah had imagined herself there, wearing her best dress, maybe even holding Claire's bouquet. But then Patricia sat her down, her voice gentle but firm. "James and Claire want an adults-only wedding, sweetie. No kids. You'll stay with a babysitter." Sarah's world crumbled. "But I'm not a kid," she'd protested, her voice small. "I'm his sister." Patricia's smile was pitying. "It's their day, Sarah. You'll understand." That day, Sarah sat in her room, a babysitter flipping through channels in the living room, while her family danced and toasted without her. She'd pressed her face to the window, watching her parents' car disappear, her tears blurring the Chicago skyline. When James returned from his honeymoon, Sarah waited for an apology, a story, anything, but he just ruffled her hair and said, "Missed you, kid," as if she'd been on vacation, not left behind. The silence was worse than the rejection. It told her she didn't matter enough to be missed. Now, at 28, Sarah taught 3rd graders in a Logan Square elementary school, her classroom a riot of color and laughter. She loved her students, their unfiltered joy a balm for the ache she carried. Logan Square was her haven, its tree-lined streets and vibrant murals a contrast to the cold formality of her family's world. The neighborhood's coffee shops and taco stands were filled with people who knew her name, who asked about her day. Yet, even here, the journal's words pulled her back to that 10-year-old girl, begging to be seen. 2 years ago, at a Logan Square block party, Sarah had met Ryan. He'd been manning a booth for a local charity, his dark hair falling into his eyes, his smile easy and warm. They'd bonded over a shared love of old movies, debating Casablanca versus The Godfather until the sun set. Ryan, a financial analyst with a knack for making numbers feel human, was different from anyone Sarah had known. He listened when she spoke, his questions gentle but probing, peeling back layers she'd kept hidden. When she told him about James's wedding, his brow furrowed. "They left you out? That's not right," he'd said, his voice firm. For the first time, Sarah felt validated, her pain acknowledged. Their relationship grew steadily, a quiet anchor in Sarah's stormy world. Ryan's apartment, just blocks from hers, became a second home, its walls lined with vinyl records and photos of his tight-knit family. He'd proposed 6 months ago, under a canopy of stars at Millennium Park, his voice steady as he said, "I want to build a life with you, Sarah. You're enough. More than enough." She'd said yes, her heart full, but the journal's weight lingered. Her siblings, now scattered across Chicago and beyond, hadn't reached out in years, their lives a series of milestones Sarah only heard about through Patricia's updates. Yet the thought of her own wedding stirred a question. Would they care enough to include her now? Sarah closed the journal, its pages heavy with unspoken hurt. The rain had stopped, leaving Logan Square quiet, its streets glistening under streetlights. She stood, her reflection in the window a mix of the girl she'd been and the woman she was becoming. Ryan's voice echoed in her mind, his words a lifeline. "You're enough." For years, she'd chased her family's approval, only to be left behind. But as she tucked the journal away, a resolve took root. Her wedding would be different, her day, her rules. And maybe, just maybe, that meant leaving behind the family who'd never made room for her. The Chicago wind carried a faint chill through Logan Square, rustling the leaves outside Sarah's classroom window. She stood at her desk, organizing a stack of drawings her third graders had made, bright, chaotic sketches of families and dreams. At 28, Sarah found solace in her students' unfiltered joy, but today, her mind drifted to darker corners. She'd tucked her old journal away after revisiting the pain of James's wedding, but the memories it stirred refused to stay buried. Each exclusion, each locked door, had built a wall between her and the family she'd once adored. As she locked the classroom, her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Dinner at 7? Got a surprise for you." She smiled, the warmth of his words a tether to the present, pulling her from the past. At 12, Sarah had thought she could outgrow the hurt of James's wedding. She was older, quieter, more composed. Surely Daniel's wedding would be different. A serious doctor with a clipped way of speaking, Daniel had always been distant, but Sarah clung to the hope that he saw her as more than a kid. His fiancée, Ellen, was soft-spoken, a nurse who'd once given Sarah a Band-Aid with a smile. The wedding was planned for a lakeside venue in Evanston, its elegance understated but grand. Sarah practiced sitting still, folding her hands like a lady, determined to prove she belonged. But Patricia's voice, laced with that familiar pity, crushed her hopes. "Daniel and Ellen want no kids, Sarah. It's not personal. You'll stay with a sitter." Sarah's plea, "I'm 12, I'm not a baby," was met with a sigh. "It's their choice, sweetie." That night, alone with a babysitter's TV drone, Sarah scribbled in her journal, "They don't want me. Nobody does." 3 years later, Laura's wedding was a different kind of wound. At 15, Sarah was a teenager, her awkwardness giving way to a quiet grace. Laura, a marketing exec with a polished smile, had always been the family's chameleon. Charming when it suited her, cutting when it didn't. Her wedding was a spectacle, held at a River North ballroom with crystal chandeliers and a string quartet. Sarah, desperate to be included, had begged Laura directly. "I'm your sister," she'd said, her voice trembling. "I won't make a scene. Please let me come." Laura's eyes, cold behind her perfect makeup, flicked over Sarah like she was a stranger. "If I let you come, everyone else's kids will expect an invite," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "It's not personal, Sarah. Don't make this about you." The words stung like a slap. Sarah's anger flared. "It is about me," she snapped. "I'm not some random kid. I'm family." Laura rolled her eyes. "Grow up, Sarah. It's my day." Patricia, overhearing the argument, swooped in, her voice sharp. Sarah, stop being dramatic. Laura's worked hard for this wedding. Don't ruin it. Sarah's throat tightened, her mother's words a betrayal deeper than Laura's. She stormed to her room, grounded for a month for disrespecting her sister. In her journal, she wrote, Laura's a liar. Mom doesn't care. I hate them. The punishment didn't hurt as much as the realization. Her family didn't see her as an equal, only a problem to be managed. By 17, Sarah had learned to temper her hopes. Ethan, the youngest of her older siblings, was her last chance. A musician with a restless charm, he'd always been the least cruel, the one who'd occasionally toss her a smile or a guitar pick. His wedding, a bohemian affair in a Wicker Park loft, felt like it might be different. But the invitation never came. No one under 18, Patricia explained, her voice casual, as if it were a minor detail. Sarah didn't beg this time, she was too tired. But the exclusion cut deeper because it was Ethan, the brother she'd thought might understand. She stayed home, staring at the ceiling, her journal untouched. Her cousin, barely 18, got to go, a fact Patricia mentioned offhand, twisting the knife. Sarah's heart hardened. They'll never change. Now, in the present, Sarah sat across from Ryan at a cozy Logan Square diner, its neon sign buzzing outside. He slid a small box across the table, his dark eyes twinkling. Early wedding gift, he said. Inside was a delicate bracelet. Engraved with you are enough. Sarah's eyes welled up. How do you always know what I need? She whispered. Ryan's hand found hers. Because I see you, Sarah. All of you. Over burgers and milkshakes. She opened up about Ethan's wedding, the memory raw after years of silence. I thought he'd be different, she said, her voice breaking. But he didn't even try to include me. Ryan's jaw tightened, but his tone was gentle. They didn't deserve you then, and they don't now. You're not that kid anymore. His words sank in, a lifeline she hadn't known she needed. Back at her apartment, Sarah and Ryan pored over wedding plans. A small garden ceremony in Logan Square, with fairy lights and a playlist of their favorite songs. No stuffy ballrooms, Sarah said, grinning. Just people who actually care. Ryan nodded, sketching a seating chart. Exactly. This is our day. As they worked, Sarah's journal sat on the shelf, a reminder of the girl who'd begged to be seen. She was done begging. Her wedding would be a celebration of the life she'd built, not the family who'd left her behind. But a flicker of unease lingered. Patricia would find out soon, James, Daniel, Laura, and Ethan too. Sarah knew the storm was coming, the accusations of pettiness, the guilt trips. She glanced at Ryan, his steady presence a shield against the chaos she anticipated. Closing her journal, she felt a surge of freedom, tempered by dread. She was choosing herself, but at what cost? Sarah's story is one of heartbreak and strength, and it's just beginning. Subscribe to our channel to follow her fight for self-worth and love. Hit that button and join the journey. The hum of Logan Square's evening buzz filled Sarah's apartment, a comforting contrast to the storm brewing inside her. She sat on her couch, a notebook of wedding plans open on her lap, sketches of a garden ceremony, guest lists, and song choices scribbled in Ryan's neat handwriting. At 28, Sarah felt a flicker of joy planning her future with Ryan, but the weight of her past clung to her like damp Chicago fog. Her journal, now closed on the coffee table, was a silent reminder of the family who'd shut her out. James, Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and her mother, Patricia. Tonight, she'd made a decision that felt both liberating and terrifying. Her siblings wouldn't be invited to her wedding. Ryan, sprawled beside her, caught her distant look. You okay, Sarah? He asked, his dark eyes soft. She nodded, forcing a smile. Just thinking about them. The guest list had been the hardest part. Sarah had written names, her best friend Jenna, Ryan's parents, a few cousins who'd always been kind. But her siblings' names were conspicuously absent. They don't get to show up now, she told Ryan, her voice firm but trembling. Not after everything. He'd squeezed her hand, his bracelet on her wrist glinting, a reminder that she was enough. They'd kept the decision quiet, knowing Patricia's knack for sniffing out family secrets. But Sarah wasn't naive. The truth would come out, and when it did, she'd face a reckoning. For now, she focused on the wedding, a small, heartfelt affair in a Logan Square garden, far from the glitz of her siblings' events. 2 months before the wedding, the storm broke. Sarah was grading papers at her kitchen table when her phone rang. Patricia's name flashed on the screen, and her stomach dropped. She considered ignoring it, but curiosity won. "Hello, Mom," she said, her voice cautious. Patricia's tone was syrupy, a red flag. "Sarah, darling, how's the wedding planning? Everything on track?" Sarah hesitated, sensing a trap. "It's good, Mom. Almost done." Patricia paused, then pounced. "That's wonderful. But your brothers and sister haven't gotten their invitations. Did they go out yet?" Sarah's heart pounded. She'd hoped to delay this, but there was no escaping now. "I sent the invites," she said, her voice steady. "They're not invited." The line went silent, a heavy, shocked pause. Then Patricia's voice erupted, sharp as a whip. "What do you mean, not invited? Sarah, they're your family. What's wrong with you?" Sarah gripped the phone, her knuckles white. "They didn't invite me to their weddings, Mom. Not one. James, Daniel, Laura, Ethan, they all shut me out. I'm just doing the same." Patricia's laugh was bitter. "That was years ago. You were a child. You're tearing this family apart over some petty grudge." Sarah's throat tightened, her mother's words echoing Laura's dismissal years ago. "Petty?" she snapped. "I was 10 when James got married, Mom. I begged to be there, and you all told me I didn't matter. It happened 4 times. Don't tell me it's petty." Patricia's voice softened, but it was a calculated shift. "Sarah, you're being selfish. Family is forever. What will people think?" There it was, her mother's obsession with appearances. Sarah's anger flared. "I don't care what people think," she said, her voice rising. "This is my wedding, and I'm only inviting people who care about me. They didn't care enough to include me, so they don't get to be here now." Patricia gasped, as if Sarah had committed a crime. "You'll regret this," she said, her voice trembling with rage. "You're destroying us." The call ended with a click, leaving Sarah staring at her phone, her hands shaking. By evening, the family group chat exploded. Laura, ever the manipulator, led the charge with a message dripping with fake concern. "Hey Sarah, did our invites get lost? We're so excited for your big day." Sarah's jaw clenched at the hypocrisy. Daniel was blunter. "What's going on? Why aren't we invited? This isn't how family works." James, the self-appointed patriarch, chimed in, "Sarah, this is low. We're your siblings. Call me." Ethan's message was the softest, but it still stung. "Didn't think you'd cut us out like this. What happened?" Sarah stared at the screen, her heart torn between anger and a lingering ache. Part of her wanted to reply, to lay out every hurt, every rejection. But she knew they'd twist her words, make her the villain. She muted the chat, her resolve hardening. Ryan found her curled on the couch, tears streaking her face. "They're at it, aren't they?" he said, sitting beside her. She showed him the messages, her voice breaking. "They act like I'm the one who's wrong, like I'm breaking some sacred rule." Ryan pulled her close, his arms a shield. "You're not wrong," he said, his voice steady. "They excluded you for years, Sarah. They don't get to play victims now." He took her phone, drafting a simple reply to the group chat. "I'm inviting people who've shown they care about me. You didn't. That's all." He showed it to her, his eyes searching. "You don't have to send it, but you deserve to say it." Sarah nodded, her finger hovering over the send button. She pressed it, then blocked the chat, her heart pounding but lighter. The fallout was immediate. Patricia called again, leaving a voicemail Sarah deleted unheard. Laura texted from a new number. "We're family, Sarah. How could you do this?" Sarah blocked her too, but the words lingered, a ghost of the guilt she'd carried as a child. She stood in her apartment, the Logan Square skyline glowing through the window, and felt the weight of her choice. She was alone in this fight, save for Ryan and a few friends like Jenna. Her family hadn't changed. They still saw her as the disposable little sister, a problem to be managed. But Sarah wasn't that girl anymore. She was building a life, a wedding, a future with people who saw her worth. As she tucked her wedding notebook away, Sarah's gaze fell on the bracelet Ryan had given her. "You are enough." The words anchored her, a reminder that she was choosing herself, even if it meant facing a storm. But the storm was far from over. Patricia's anger, Laura's manipulations, her brother's accusations would only grow louder. Sarah exhaled, bracing for what was coming. Her resolve a quiet fire. Sarah's fight for her worth is just heating up. Subscribe to our channel to follow her journey through family drama and triumph. Join us now. The Chicago skyline glowed through Sarah's apartment window, its lights a stark contrast to the storm brewing on her phone. Notifications pinged relentlessly, each one a jab at her resolve. It had been a week since she'd told Patricia her siblings, James, Daniel, Laura, and Ethan, weren't invited to her wedding, and the fallout was merciless. Sarah, 28, sat on her Logan Square couch, her journal closed but its weight ever present. Ryan, beside her, scrolled through his phone, his jaw tight. "They're at it again," he said, showing her a Facebook post from Laura. Sarah's stomach churned as she read. Sarah's turned her back on family, choosing spite over love. Some people forget what family means. #family ties. The post had hundreds of likes, comments from distant relatives and strangers piling on. "So sad. She's being petty." Laura's words were a masterclass in manipulation, her polished profile picture beaming as if she were the victim. James and Daniel amplified the attack on X, James posting, "My sister's wedding is a chance to heal, but she's choosing division. #family ties." Daniel, ever clinical, added, "Actions have consequences, Sarah. You're hurting everyone." The hashtag family ties trended in Chicago's online circles, splitting the city's keyboard warriors. Some called Sarah ungrateful. "She's throwing away her family," while others questioned, "Why is she the bad guy? What's the full story?" Sarah's hands shook as she scrolled, the vitriol cutting deeper than she'd expected. She'd always been private, her life confined to her classroom and Logan Square's quiet streets. Now she was a villain in her family's narrative. Patricia escalated the pressure. The next morning, Sarah's phone rang. Linda, her mother's sister, a woman she hadn't spoken to in years. Sarah sighed, answering reluctantly. "Sarah, honey," Linda began, her voice syrupy. "Your mom's heartbroken. Why are you shutting out your siblings? Family's forever, you know?" Sarah's patience thinned. "Linda, they shut me out first. I wasn't invited to any of their weddings, James, Daniel, Laura, Ethan. For times. I was a kid, begging to be included." Linda's tone turned patronizing. "That was ages ago, dear. Be the bigger person. Let it go." Sarah's voice hardened. "Being the bigger person doesn't mean letting people hurt you. I'm done." She hung up, her heart racing, Patricia's fingerprints all over the call. The drama bled into Sarah's life. Old high school friends texted, their messages a mix of concern and judgment. "Are you okay? Your family's posting everywhere. Why you being so harsh?" Sarah ignored them, but the isolation stung. At school, a colleague asked, "You're that Sarah from X, right? What's going on?" Sarah forced a smile, deflecting, but the scrutiny was suffocating. She confided in Jenna, her best friend, over coffee at a Logan Square cafe. Jenna, fierce and loyal, slammed her mug down. "They're gaslighting you, Sarah. Laura's post is pure theater. She's playing the martyr." Jenna scrolled through X, her eyes narrowing. "You need to set the record straight. People are listening." Ryan agreed. That night, in their apartment, he sat with Sarah, his laptop open. "You don't have to stay silent," he said, his voice steady. "Tell your story. Not for them, for you." Sarah hesitated, the journal on the table a reminder of the girl who'd written "They don't want me." But Ryan's bracelet on her wrist, "You are enough," grounded her. With Ryan and Jenna's input, she drafted a post on X, her fingers trembling but deliberate. "My siblings, James, Daniel, Laura, Ethan, banned me from their weddings starting when I was 10. I begged to be there, but they said I didn't matter. Now I'm planning my wedding, and I chose not to invite them. They're calling me spiteful, but I'm choosing people who care. This is my truth. Hashtag family ties. She hit post, her breath catching as the screen glowed. The post exploded. Within hours, retweets climbed into the thousands, comments flooding in. That's awful. You deserved better. One user wrote, I was excluded from my sister's wedding too. Thank you for speaking up, said another. But Laura's allies fought back. Sounds like a sob story. Family's not perfect, Sarah. The hashtag family ties became a battleground. Chicago's online community split between empathy and outrage. Jenna, ever the warrior, reposted Sarah's message, adding, Laura's out here playing victim while Sarah's telling the truth. Stand up for what's right. Her words rallied more supporters, but the hate kept coming. Anonymous accounts calling Sarah bitter and ungrateful. Laura and Patricia didn't let up. Laura texted Sarah, your post is embarrassing. We're family, why air our laundry? Patricia left a voicemail, her voice quivering with calculated hurt. Sarah, you're humiliating us. Stop this nonsense and talk to your siblings. Delinda called again, her tone sharper. You're breaking your mother's heart, Sarah. Fix this. Sarah deleted the messages, her resolve wavering but unbroken. Ryan pulled her close, his arms a haven. You did the right thing, he said, kissing her forehead. They're mad because you're not invisible anymore. Jenna, crashing on their couch, nodded. They're losing control and they hate it. Keep going. Sarah stood on her balcony, the Logan Square skyline a mosaic of light and shadow. Her post had given her a voice, but it had also made her a target. Friends were drifting away, swayed by her family's narrative. Patricia and Laura were plotting something. She could feel it. Yet, as she clutched Ryan's bracelet, Sarah felt a spark of pride. She'd told her truth, and strangers were listening, sharing their own stories of exclusion. She wasn't alone, but the fight was far from over. The city hummed below, its pulse a reminder of the bigger battle ahead. Sarah's courage is shaking Chicago. Subscribe to our channel to witness her stand against family betrayal and fight for her truth. Join the movement now. The Chicago sunrise bathed Logan Square in a gentle glow, its light slipping through Sarah's apartment window. She stood in her bedroom, her wedding dress, a flowing gown with delicate lace, draped over a chair, a quiet promise of the day ahead. At 28, Sarah felt a blend of anticipation and resolve. Today was her wedding, a celebration of the love and family she'd chosen, not the one that had cast her aside. Her phone, silenced after weeks of family drama, showed no new notifications, a stillness that felt like liberation. Ryan, already at the venue, had texted a single heart emoji, anchoring her. Sarah touched the bracelet he'd given her. You are enough, and steeled herself, sensing the shadow of her family's next move. Across the city, in River North's polished core, Laura and Patricia had staged their retaliation. Their rival event, a calculated strike against Sarah's wedding, unfolded at Vivo, an upscale Italian restaurant with velvet booths and glittering chandeliers. Laura, clad in a striking crimson dress, stood before a crowd of relatives, family friends, and curious onlookers, her phone live streaming on X. Today should have united us, she said, her voice trembling with rehearsed sorrow. But Sarah's betrayal has broken our family, choosing grudges over love. James, his lawyer's presence commanding, added, my sister's lost her way, but will always hold the door open. The live stream ignited a firestorm under hashtag family ties, with comments like, Laura's so strong, clashing with, they excluded Sarah first, pure hypocrisy. Chicago's online community split, the city buzzing with debate. Sarah learned of the rival event through Jenna, who burst into her apartment an hour before the ceremony, phone blazing with screenshots. They're live streaming their pathetic stunt, Jenna said, her voice sharp. Laura's acting like a saint, and your mom's nodding along. Sarah's chest tightened, but she'd anticipated this. Patricia had sent a final text at dawn. Come to Vivo, Sarah. Be part of the family. Sarah stared at the message, her resolve unshaken. "They're never going to change," she said, blocking Patricia's number. Then Laura's, James's, Daniel's, and Ethan's in a swift, final act. The ties that had bound her to pain were gone. Jenna hugged her fiercely. "You're free, Sarah. Let's make today yours." The garden in Logan Square was a haven of warmth, wildflowers swaying beneath strings of fairy lights, a wooden arch draped in ivy. 50 guests, Ryan's parents, Jenna, loyal cousins, Sarah's colleagues, sat in folding chairs, their smiles a world apart from River North's cold grandeur. Sarah walked down the aisle, her dress shimmering in the sunlight, her green eyes fixed on Ryan. He stood tall, his dark hair tousled, his smile a beacon. Their vows pierced the spring air. "Sarah," Ryan said, his voice thick with emotion, "you're my strength, my home. I promise to stand by you always." Sarah's tears fell as she replied, "Ryan, you saw me when I was invisible. I promise to love you with all I am." The guests cheered, their warmth wrapping Sarah like a cocoon. The reception pulsed with joy, a local band playing Sarah and Ryan's favorite Fleetwood Mac tunes. Jenna's speech was a triumph. Glass raised, she faced the crowd, her voice steady. "Sarah's my best friend, the strongest woman I know. She's faced rejection and still chose love, real love, the kind we're celebrating here. To Sarah and Ryan, who show us what family can be." The guests roared, and Sarah squeezed Ryan's hand, her heart full. A small figure approached, Mia, an 8-year-old from Sarah's class, her pigtails bouncing. "Miss Sarah," she said shyly, offering a drawing of a bride and groom under a rainbow, labeled Miss Sarah and Mr. Ryan. Sarah knelt, hugging her tightly. "This is perfect, Mia," she said, tears brimming. The gesture, small but profound, rooted her in the community she'd nurtured. In River North, the rival event unraveled. Laura's live stream faltered as viewers, spurred by Sarah's ex-post, exposed the family's contradictions. "They banned Sarah from 4 weddings, then cry when she sets boundaries?" One user wrote. "Family ties is a sham." By evening, the hashtag turned against Laura, thousands praising Sarah's courage. Patricia, silent online, sent Aunt Linda to text Sarah. "You're breaking your mother's heart. Stop this." Sarah deleted it, her focus on the dance floor, where Ryan spun her to Harvest Moon. Ryan's parents, warm and welcoming, embraced her. "You're our daughter now," his mother said, and Sarah's throat tightened. This was family, chosen, not imposed. Sarah stepped away during the reception, standing at the garden's edge, fairy lights twinkling above. The Chicago skyline shimmered, a map of battles fought and victories earned. She thought of her journal, the girl who'd written "They don't want me," and felt a surge of pride. She'd built a family, Ryan, Jenna, Mia, this community that saw her worth. The pain of her siblings' rejection lingered, a faint scar, but it no longer defined her. She was free not because her family had changed, but because she had. Ryan joined her, his hand finding hers. "Happy?" he asked, his voice soft. Sarah nodded, her eyes bright. "More than I ever thought possible." The garden buzzed with laughter, Logan Square's heart beating strong. Sarah had fought for her worth and won, not by changing her family, but by choosing her own. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was ready, her future glowing as brightly as the lights above. A year had passed since the fairy lights of Logan Square illuminated Sarah's wedding, and the Chicago skyline now sparkled against a crisp autumn evening, its glow softer, more like a promise than a challenge. Sarah, 29, stood in her classroom, the walls a riot of color from her students' artwork. Her brown hair was tied back, her green eyes bright with purpose as she arranged supplies for the after-school art club she'd founded. The club, a haven for Logan Square's kids, was Sarah's pride, a place where creativity thrived, where every child was seen. She wore Ryan's bracelet, its "You Are Enough" engraving a quiet reminder of the journey that had brought her here. Outside, the neighborhood buzzed with life. Its murals and taco stands a testament to the community that had embraced her. Sarah's life with Ryan had settled into a rhythm of love and partnership. Their Logan Square apartment, now filled with shared books and framed photos, was a sanctuary. Ryan, 31, had taken a promotion as a financial analyst, but his heart remained in moments like these, helping Sarah set up easels, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he teased her about her paint-stained jeans. "You're a masterpiece," he said, kissing her forehead, and Sarah laughed, the sound lighter than it had been a year ago. Her wedding, a day of chosen family, had marked a turning point. She'd shed the weight of her siblings, James, Daniel, Laura, Ethan, and her mother, Patricia, choosing instead a life built on truth. The past year hadn't been without echoes of that old pain. A month ago, a message from Ethan had appeared on X, his first attempt at contact since the wedding. "Hey Sarah, maybe we got things wrong back then. Hope you're good." The words were vague, lacking the weight of real remorse, a musician's half-hearted strum. Sarah read it at her desk, her finger hovering over the reply button. Memories of Ethan's wedding, the Wicker Park loft where she'd been excluded at 17, flickered in her mind. She'd hoped for more from him once, but hope had long since faded. "He doesn't get to waltz back in," she told Ryan, her voice steady. She blocked Ethan's account, the act a quiet assertion of her peace. The message, like her family, was a ghost she no longer needed to face. Laura and Patricia had faded into the margins of Chicago's social scene. Laura, once a rising star in marketing, had stumbled after the rival event at Vivo. Her live stream, meant to vilify Sarah, had backfired, exposing her hypocrisy to clients and colleagues. Her firm sidelined her, and her polished Instagram grew sparse, her posts no longer commanding the likes they once did. Patricia, living in a quiet condo on the South Side, had tried to reach Sarah with a handwritten letter, its envelope unopened in Sarah's drawer. "She wants forgiveness without accountability," Sarah told Jenna, tossing the letter aside. The family, once a towering presence, had crumbled, their unity fractured by their own actions. James and Daniel, absorbed in their careers, had gone silent. The #FamilyTies hashtag had died, replaced by stories of others inspired by Sarah's stand. Sarah's true legacy shone in Logan Square. Her art club, now a fixture at the school, drew dozens of kids, including Mia, the 8-year-old whose wedding drawing had touched Sarah's heart. Mia's latest work, a vibrant mural of a rainbow over Chicago, was chosen to hang in the school's lobby, a plaque beneath it reading, "Inspired by Miss Sarah, who teaches us to shine." Sarah had cried when the principal unveiled it, Mia's proud grin a mirror of her own. The drawing, once a wedding gift, had become a symbol of resilience, a reminder that Sarah's impact reached beyond her classroom. Parents thanked her at school events, their stories of inspired kids echoing the community's warmth. One evening, Sarah stood outside the school, the mural glowing under streetlights. Ryan joined her, his arm around her waist. "You've built something incredible," he said, his voice soft. Sarah nodded, her eyes tracing the rainbow's arc. She thought of her journal, its pages of childhood pain now a distant memory. The girl who'd written "They don't want me" had grown into a woman who'd chosen herself, who'd turned rejection into purpose. Laura, Patricia, her brothers, they hadn't defined her. This community, this life had. Mia's mural, vibrant and bold, was her legacy, a testament to the strength she'd found. The Chicago skyline stretched before her, its lights a map of battles won. Sarah had fought for her worth, not with vengeance, but with courage, building a family of love and art. The future was hers, shared with Ryan, with Mia, with Logan Square's beating heart. She was no longer invisible. She was radiant, ready for whatever came next.